Welcome to the 134th edition of airhacks TV. And let's start with something unusual. So I'm working, or I'm helping a company called Cosima, and usually there are lots of NDAs, whatever, but this time they ask me, I can actually announce that they are searching for Java developers. And the interesting part is this is Quarkus, microprofile, no dependency, completely hardcore serverless, no nonsense, just, no code coverage. So I would say this is like almost like airhacks TV project. And they are searching for developers in Berlin. And so I'm just working as an freelancing consultant for them. Seems like a nice company, small team, and yeah, this is the state right now. If they grow, I don't know what happens, but right now looks good. And lots of fun. So if you like, check out Cosima. I also announced that on LinkedIn, and why I'm doing this is because I get lots of back channel messages, whether I know good company or interesting projects, whatever. And this is announcement. If you like, just apply. And I also announced this job offer, I would say 1 month ago at airhacks on the airhacks Discord server. So now, why is this now 1 week early? So usually, it was the last time was the last couple of airhacks, they were never on time. Sorry for that, and this time has to be earlier. And the reason being is because next week I'm on the JAX conference with 2 talks. One is actually a fun one. This is what I really enjoy, is like the 100 best 100 snippets from my YouTube shorts. So what I'm doing there, I pick what's most interesting and most popular shorts and present them live or code them live or whatever. I did it once on at Devox, and it was surprisingly popular. And I think by now we have almost 1,000 shorts, so this is never the same. And almost a tradition, also an LLM session. And I got a couple of questions regarding LLMs this time, so it fits well. So, and I will speak next week on Tuesday. So if you're on JAX, say hello. You get a gift from me, socks or whatever. So this is why we are not on the first Monday of the month, rather than almost the first Monday of the month. So all systems are operational, which is incredible. So I'm a little bit nervous because the last time it didn't work that well. Okay, so we had the JAX, we had the job announcement, and I think we can start with the first session. So I got a really nice message on LinkedIn regarding one topic we discussed earlier, and this is gRPC versus REST. And the question I got is, what's the difference? Or I mentioned something that REST is better regarding querying, and gRPC is not. And I would like to clarify this right now. Okay, I only have to double check. So here's the thing. gRPC is basically just a Java invocation. And by the way, what I would like to do right now is just to switch to black for a second. Okay, now I should be back with my magic editor. So here's the editor. So what I did, I just opened a terminal. So regarding REST, the interesting part is REST is about get, post, put, delete, and options, and every such a method has a particular meaning. So get is fetching, post is inserting but not updates, put is upsert, delete is cancel, delete, or whatever. options is or the capabilities, and head is like get, but just give me the metadata without the body. So this is well-defined methods, and there's no such thing in gRPC. gRPC is just calling a method, and in gRPC you would usually get a kind of a interface description, and for that description you generate the stubs and skeletons. So this is how this would work. So now, if we would model airhacks, right? So, and let's say airhacks we have shows. So if I would, so this would be our REST airhacks API. So with get shows, what do you expect? I would expect a JSON with either fully populated shows or links to the shows. But at least, in the I think 10 years ago, at the very beginning of airhacks TV, we spent a lot of time discussing this. Back then there was like called Restafarians. People were very strict about machine readable REST APIs. And how this would work is, if I say get shows, I would get a list of shows of links, and I can go to a link and invoke get, post, put, and delete, and so forth. Okay, now today airhacks TV is 134, show number 134. I guess, yes, it is. So it means with 134, if I say here get, I get today show. And by the way, this get, this shows is always a plural in REST. It will be shows, developers, and programming languages, get. So, and now in post, I will create the show nodes, for instance, right? And I could say 134, and let's say go here, and I could, for instance, have a title, and the title could be H1, H2, and 3, or subtitle, whatever. Or I could say I would like to push here the, show nodes. They can be multiple nodes. If there are multiple show nodes, then they could have IDs as well. So what it means is, if you do REST, you are usually mapping the HTTP protocol to business meaning. This is REST. If there is no such concept, it's not REST. It's just HTTP RPC. So there's nothing wrong with HTTP RPC, but HTTP comes with a lot of overhead, with some overhead. So it is a pity to using HTTP without any more meaning. Which means is with gRPC, you're just calling remote methods, and with REST, you are manipulating the state of an object. So this is the main difference between both. And the cool story is, with REST, if you do it correctly, you don't have to document the API a lot, because it should be self-describing. And Alex S says, isn't that idea of resources operations on its procedure method calls? I hope I said this, Alex, right? So this show is like a collection of resources, like a folder, and the show number 134 is like a file in the folder. So I would say the first path conceptually is like collection of objects or folder. Then comes the ID, the current folder and ID. And what I remember at the very beginning, I was kind of a webmaster a few years ago, and there was a folder. We had the folder images, and then there was images / and there was the picture. So the idea of and it doesn't have to be a folder or resource on an object. It could be a workflow. And if you have a workflow, and you see workflow, let's say tasks delete, it's not like I'm deleting a task. Delete could also mean cancel, for instance, right? So I would say REST for me means it manipulates well-defined objects or resources, and with these methods, and the methods are predefined, and you're mapping everything to the methods. Having said that, what we did once was a bit crazy. It was a JAX RS project, and it's nothing against doing this, right? I can say get methods, and I get all the methods which can be invoked. So, and what I can and what I can do then is I can say post to a method and say method name, let's say save user, which is the method ID, right? And then post a JSON object, which is mapped to method parameters, and the method gets invoked. And what I could also do, get method, and what I get then is the metadata of the method, for instance, right? So what it means is I could actually model Java reflection as a proper REST resource. So why not? If I can model workflows or calendar invocations, why not using REST to expose reflection? This is a bit crazy, but would be completely RESTful. But what I see instead, like there is no concept, and what sometimes happens is like get users I don't know from Munich, and then the parameter list, and this is nothing, right? So this is like dangerous first because get can have must not have side effects, but in this case it clearly has. Okay, I hope we clarified the first thing, and gRPC is just Corba on steroids. It's actually the same, very similar concept to IDLs and Corba, interface description language, and it generates stubs and skeletons, and this is basically it. So I get a good question on Twitter from Lenny. And the question is performance of request scoped on Quarkus, and whether it is good or bad. Because what happened years ago, I measured EJB performance versus request scoped, and of course EJBs were faster. Why that? Because EJBs are pooled and request scoped is not pooled. And what it means is, if you have EJB with injected EJBs, everything was pooled, means the dependency injection was performed only once. But in request scoped, all the beans were recreated on every request, meant that the entire injection had to happen over and over again. So as I remember, EJBs were 10 to 20% faster than request scoped. And now is the question, what's the deal with Quarkus? And as I remember, I also performed some tests on Quarkus. And Quarkus is different. Why? Because Quarkus doesn't use reflection for the dependency injection. So it means, and the reflection is slow, but if there is no reflection, it is not as bad as without Quarkus. So what means is, in Quarkus, the effect of request scoped is not as big as on other runtimes or application servers. Now, it really depends what you are doing in the request scope. Now imagine in the post construct method, you are fetching a file, right? So in this particular case, it will be of course slower, because in EJB this will happen only once per bean, and request scoped on every request. So you have to be careful what you are doing in post construct. But if you behave, I would say normally, you know what they are doing, you can absolutely use request scope on Quarkus. Having said that, in serverless project, like for instance the Cosimo one, we use application scoped everywhere, because if you are in a serverless environment, you are alone more or less, because the lambdas are scaling like a process, so there will be never two users in the same lambda instance. If they're so lambdas are very similar to EJBs basically. Okay, so long story short, request scoped on Quarkus is a lot faster. Application scoped is still a little bit faster than request scoped. And are the EJB features missing? Sometimes they are. For instance, if you would use with LLMs, deal with LLMs, right? So you could, for instance, load a model in EJB and keep it open. With request scoped, it will, with application scoped, it will also work, but then you could have multiple threads accessing the same LLM, which could be problematic. The same is true, we had similar problems with GraalVM images. If you have GraalVM polyglot features and you would like to start the JavaScript runtime, you can do it absolutely in EJB, but on request scope, you have the problem that the context, the GraalVM context, has to be opened on every request. So that's the difference. So the chat is a little bit quiet here, right? So it's a little bit dangerous. Not that I'm offline again, but the show is recorded. So no, okay. So something happens. Very good. So friend of the show, Daniel, and why I know him, because he attended the Origin airhacks at Munich Airport. This is why, on my YouTube channel, LinkedIn, there's always airport, because 10 years ago or even longer, there were everything started at the airport, then pandemic happened and we went online. And maybe I will do it on airport again, but as I already mentioned a couple of times, I got, the attendees from all over the world. And the problem is, I don't believe that US attendees will fly in to Munich just to join my workshop. So it happens in the past, but right now with the pandemic, everyone became a bit lazier. So, but Daniel asked me the following question: AI agents and automation are the talk of the town. Yes. Positive and negative. It really depends on the town, right? Now I wanted to dip my toes into it and see what can really be done that would be interesting, but I want to stick to Java Quarkus, which is a good idea. So any advice on that? At most of the interface I've seen for those are low, no code, and Quarkus would be completely coded. Yes. So Quarkus won't be completely coded. And Quarkus is least code possible. There's a LangChain4j framework. LangChain4j. And the LangChain4j is what it is like an ESB for LLMs. So if you just would like to try something, I would say LangChain4j is very simple. Yeah, it's very simple. With Quarkus, you basically get an interface. In an annotation, you put the prompt, the interface is injected, and you are done. So this is how it works. Okay. Now I lost my questions. This is what happens. Okay, so what I should do is to go to LMBean blog and now back to questions. Okay, and so this is what you should do. And then he asks again now, and he says, okay, this is a correspondence exchange system for a governmental entity in Congo. And Daniel had already, interesting projects in the past. Daniel, thank you. So this is the most interactive show, right? Okay, here is it. You're right. Yeah, but no more true, right, Daniel? Okay, now he asked me, okay, actually it helps following correspondences when receiving due the whole workflow until an answer is sent back to the original sender. The solution is completely Quarkus based, as you can imagine. Okay. I would like to integrate AI in the solution to bring more value that when the letters are received and scanned, the AI will be able to read the documents, make a summary, and categorizing it, which is actually, this should work. So because I do similar things with airhacks and my stuff, so this is a good idea for AI. Any idea how to pass documents for such an action to an LLM? I would like to use local one in order to cut cost in the solution. So I think if you use a local one, you should consider having a powerful machine. Good news is, I don't know, there are the Mac Minis, the new one. They are incredibly powerful and very cheap. So I think you could have 2 such Mac Minis, put LLM on it, and they are very fast and cheap, a few hundred euros, right? So this could be an idea. And what you could do as well is you can search for Llama 3 Java. And the Llama 3 Java, I also recorded a video about that. It is one Java source file. It is basically this. And with that, you can load, for instance, Llama 3, which is quantized. Quantized means smaller. And you can pass the document. And in the prompt, you can ask, whatever to categorize whatever you like. And this should work actually surprisingly well. So you have to play with the prompt, and you can use Llama 3 or Mistral, and you get response like 10 tokens per second. It means on a local machine per document, maybe you get an answer in 20 seconds or 30 seconds. And what I would do in your case is, if you know the categories up front, I would create an enum with the categories and tell the AI, okay, look, only use these categories. Then it will return a string for you. This is, I don't know, this is an email, this is a claim or whatever. And with that, you will map the answer to an enum. And you could hide everything behind a Java interface. And then your microservice won't even know that we are talking to LLMs. Okay. Now, this is current one. Now, Vish asked me, how relevant do you think Java is today in AI compared to Python? So it depends in which context. So in AI, there is a training phase and inference phase. And for instance, I think DJL.AI. Yes. This is interesting. If you do some research and search for that, this is Deep Java library. And there's even a free book. You can take a look on this. And this was sponsored and implemented by actually AWS. And if you dig a little bit further with that, you will find that Amazon is using this for inference internally to save costs. They are not using Python because Python is too slow, and Java is multi-threaded. So, I would say Java is incredibly fast, and if something is fast and you have to pay for the hardware, you can save money with Java. On the other hand, there are Jupyter notebooks, for instance, where you can experiment easily with Python, and with Java is a bit harder. So this is why Python is very popular in training, experimenting, but I would say in running in production, Python is very good to talk to C, right? And Java is very good. So if Python, I would say it's a bad idea to implement in Python something which performs actual calculations or computation, because it is 35 times slower than Java. So it means in this particular case, you will pay 35 times more, okay? So it means, what areas of AI ML are best suited for Java? I would say a lot, because Llama 3 Java, and there's the other one was Llama J. I forgot the other friend. This was DJL. There was Llama 4J and Llama 3 Java. And lots of articles. And the other one was by Jake. Actually, the guy is Jake Llama Java. JLlama, not exactly. And this one is a little bit more evolved with Maven and whatever. And with JLlama, you can load models to that, and they are actually they are downloaded. I would say this is a thin wrapper around inference. Okay, and now production deployment and so forth. Okay, and another thing which is interesting here is there is a JVector, and vector is a vector database. And the vector database, JVector, is a pure Java implementation which runs on Cassandra. It is the most powerful one. So I would say for inference, it's not as a bad idea to use Java for inference. Having said that, there's another thing called Java Babylon. And the project Babylon, what it can do is, Project Babylon is this is an OpenJDK project. It will analyze execution path in Java and make it possible to run it directly on GPUs. And with that, there's another project called Tornado VM. And Tornado VM is an GPU acceleration for Java, so you can run Java workloads directly on GPU. So I would say it looks actually very good, right? So Java is gaining ground in AI ecosystem and in production, because more and more workloads have to go to production. And in production, with Java, we have Maven, we have Gradle, we have the entire... so it's way easier to run Java in production than Python. Consider the dependencies. For instance, in most of critical projects, we try to avoid dependencies, and with Python is really hard, right? So, but I mean, Python is also going strong. So I would say a few years ago, no one would like to to do something to do with Python, and because it's easy to use and is a nice language, scripting language, becomes popular. There's nothing wrong against Python. It's all right. Nothing wrong with Python. Okay, so I think we covered that. So what you will do is you will have to pass to the LLM a text, and if the document is long, you will have to create chunks. And then you should take a look at RAG, a Retrieval Augmented Generation. And this RAG is already predefined in Quarkus. So there's nothing to do. They have predefined RAG pipelines, and you can use them. And what RAG is more like DAO, data access object. So everything sounds fancy, but it is rather simple, I would say. What will happen is you pass the chunk of the document to our embedding model. This is the name. You get a kind of a hash code. These are the vectors with the meaning, and then you will store it in a vector database. Then you get the prompt, which is in your case hard coded because you're only interested in the categories, and the prompt has also a vector. So I mean the prompt has to be also converted to a vector. And then you can compare both. Compare both means you pass both to the vector database and you get chunks back. So this is the retrieval. But in your case, if you only would like to categorize and document, you don't need that. But what you could do, you can search in documents for meaning, right? So with the vector stuff, I told you right now, you would be able to search in documents for meaning, not just for words, right? It's hard to explain. So, yeah. Okay. Postgres and Neo4j content out the best DB for RAG, and why? The best DB for RAG, there is no best database for RAG because Postgres is relational. Neo4j is interesting because what they can do in Neo4j, they have like a knowledge graph which maps well to LLMs. So I would say Neo4j is special. Postgres in Cassandra, Postgres relational. Cassandra looks like DynamoDB more or less, and both are using internally a native vector, how to call it, index. Yeah, vector index. So Postgres and Cassandra are similar, I would say. It really depends whether you have a DynamoDB-like workload or SQL-like workload. And Neo4j is more interesting for LLMs. Why? Because Neo4j, what's about Neo4j? This is a graph database, and what it means is the nodes are less important, but the relation between nodes are more important. So they have semantic meaning, and it's very easy to search between using the edges, and this maps really well to graph. Sorry, to LLMs. Vish he doesn't like Java. What about mobile apps? Do you see Java playing in the world of mobile apps? Mobile AI apps. I would say mobile AI is I don't know whether you could have a meaningful inference, because, for instance, even on the iPhone, they have a chip, a special chip for they have it for years for inference, but I don't think you cannot call it directly, even from Swift UI, from Swift, and in Java, mobile is actually pretty good. So you could use JavaFX, for instance, and a framework called Gluon if you go mobile with Java. But to create a really great apps, I would on Android use Kotlin, and on iPhone Swift. This is what I would do. Okay, Vish. Maybe we will find something today where Java is not good at, but it's really hard because Java is getting better and better, and Java 24 is really great. Okay, now almost at the end of the show, because what we have here is the time travel, which is always fun. So, and this is what is time travel. So we are looking back 100 episodes back, and this is 8 years. This is crazy. And the state of microprofiles, I'm asking now, will microprofile survive? And the cool story is now I'm using almost exclusively microprofile everywhere. Looks good. The status test is interesting project. I got back then. Is it still alive? Should be. Yeah, the status test, it was on GitHub. I actually have to, 9 years ago. And what it was, I have to rewrite it for Quarkus maybe. But I use it for testing, for, different status for system tests. So what I could do is I could say, okay, give me the status 205, and I got it. So this basically was, and I used it back then with Payara. So I used it just for testing, but it generated back then some bars. Java E, I would say I'm talking less about Java E and microprofile because I see both as the same. So Quarkus supports microprofile and a bits of Java E, and in the clouds we use a subset of both. And micro swarms and so forth, I would say Quarkus and killed all the swarms and micro. So Quarkus is the fastest one. Micronaut is also very, very similar to that. Then SPAs and JAX-RS always separate. So JAX-RS is the API, and the front end is separated. Why? Because I don't like to redeploy the business logic if CSS changes. Okay, Java FX, I forgot what it was about. REST architecture in 5 minutes. We did it today. After 8 years, you got, the repetition of that. Should we keep SOAP? Because I remember back then they asked, should SOAP be part of Java E? And I hope my answer back then was no. And I don't think, you would start a SOAP project right now from scratch, no. And this was also funny. There was an article, Oracle finally targets Java non-payers. And the article was, it was like clickbait, I would say. And because, after 8 years, Java is, there are still, no problems with Oracle in Java. CDI with transactions worked well. Transactional, there's annotation. When we should start to worry about performance, I would say never. Write simple code and test it. And if it's fast enough, don't do anything. So I would say easy code is, and with Java optimizes behind the scenes. So it's really hard to tell just looking at the code whether it will execute fast or not. how we can communicate multiple microservices without share the DTO. So DTOs are dead. So we got Java records, for instance. And right now what I'm doing, copy and paste. I don't try to share the DTOs between microservices because it contradicts the microservice. So I'm still a fan of Monolith. A lean way to inject properties with Java E. You don't have to do this because we get at config, right? Oh, Java E versus Spring. This is a never-ending story. So what's new? Lots of projects, as you saw in Cosima, are serverless, and just Spring is too slow for that. And this is why we are using Quarkus and in some projects Micronaut. So I'm using less Micronaut because it supports less of microprofile. So Quarkus. Is it possible to put HTML5 application after the war has been compiled? There are no more wars, so forget about that. And I would put the HTML5 or JavaScript to complete different S3 bucket or Azure Blob storage, for instance. So NetBeans is still going strong. I don't use NetBeans a lot right now because I switched completely to Visual Studio Code, and the main reason is because I do a lot of JavaScript frontend web components, and also I often have to open multiple. I'm using more Visual Studio Code like an editor. I would like to open quickly a project, and NetBeans is more interesting if you spend more time with a single projects. And right now I have multiple projects at the same time. Non-blocking I/O versus JDBC, I think stronger than ever. If you look at the Quarkus, they have an own JDBC driver with Hibernate and scales twice as good. And funny story, listen to the last podcast because with Francesco or Franz, and never call Franz Francesco. So just, but and why that? A couple of years ago, a client asked me to about high scalability with Quarkus, and they wanted to use the non-blocking, completely non-blocking stack. And so you can do this, but I forgot the numbers. But it's more like without any optimization, Quarkus could sustain 10,000 transactions per second. And with in the reactive mode, 20,000 transactions per second. And my client had only 2,000 transactions per second, so the entire idea died. Java versus Spring Cloud, no idea what Spring Cloud does. Never used that. Can we start threads in Singleton? Absolutely. But you have to know what you are doing because Singleton is application scoped and it can become inconsistent. So now, Mr. Hard to tell how to read that. But from your experience, are your most AI use cases asynchronous since LLMs are slow to provide a response? I mean, slow, right? So if you have small model, they are fast. The larger the model, the slower they gets. The larger the context window, the slower it gets because they have to reprocess all the tokens, and it really depends. I mean, for instance, right? If you register to my workshop, what I do, I have a local LLMs, and right now I use workshop means where are the workshops? Status test, this workshop. So back then there was a form, and now I try to move to Meetup or Eventbrite. But what was very easy, I could put the entire address and ask the local LLM, is it a spam? And I got accurate answer, and I decided not yes or no, rather than how likely is it a spam. And it was very accurate, but it was 2 seconds, and it was synchronous. It doesn't matter, right? So this is, and what means asynchronous? Asynchronous means the user doesn't have to wait for it. So it was synchronous in the background, but you didn't have to wait for it because you were already registered, right? So the answer, if you try to register with a spam address. So what happened then? There was no response, right? So it was asynchronous, but I use it synchronously in the background because it was fast enough in my case. So having said that, if you go to serverless, and I mentioned serverless more often these days, why? Because of costs. So I spend lots of time in enterprise projects, and enterprise projects, all big companies try to minimize the costs. And if you take a look at an enterprise project was a larger company, they are working from 8 to 5. They have vacations, weekends, and so forth. And what serverless means is pay as you go. So it means you don't have to pay, the entire night for the cluster if nothing happens. And in serverless, you pay only for the invocations. And if you take a look at behind the scenes in serverless, everything is an event. And if everything is event, everything is also asynchronous. So in such a case, you will always call your LLM asynchronously, regardless whether it is slow or not slow, because the Bedrock API, this is the AI LLM API, so you can just call it, and it is synchronous, but you don't have to wait. What you will do is, for instance, you will call the LLM, don't wait for the answer. The answer will be stored, let's say, in an S3 bucket, or you will send via event bridge, and the event bridge event will be consumed by Quarkus or Lambda, Pojo Lambda, and the Lambda will get the response to do something with it. For instance, in the case of the Daniel's document categorization system, someone sends a document, right? In this particular case, this is already asynchronous because I'm sending the document and not waiting until the document is categorized. I will get, the back channel an answer. So the document I would store in a 3 bucket first. This will emit an event bridge event. Then a Pojo Lambda will wake up, get the event, this document, it will be, let's say, Word. Will convert the Word to a text, plain text, store it in another bucket. So this plain text, or in the same bucket, right? So this plain text will emit another event. So this event will be consumed by another Lambda. This Lambda will call LLM, and whatever LLM it is, I would choose Claude, for instance, could be local one, and I say, hey, LLM, which category is it? And I say, this is an invoice. So, and then I will create a JSON document, with the document inside plus the category and store it in a S3 bucket. And then another Pojo wakes up and say, hey, cool, I have a new categorized document, and maybe send an email or do something with it. So if you take a look on this is a chain of events. You pay only for the events, and I would say all the events will cost, so event bridge, I know, million events, $1, for instance. The lambdas depends on the gigabyte second and the duration. So this is why you need something fast, where Java shines, is really fast. And this was like, what you could do with the events in the cloud. And if you do it locally, it doesn't matter a lot because you are not paying for the CPU. So, but you have to pay for the cluster day and night, right? Luna, this is true. I never use Spring Cloud because in the cloud I just use Pojo, so no idea what Spring really does, right? So Guntu says, hi Adam, hi Guntu. And now, have you tried OpenAPI Generator to build a Java client from OpenAPI? I know projects are doing this. I don't like this. I like to start with Java, and then if I need, I would create an OpenAPI, put OpenAPI annotations on Java. And avoid copy and pasting. I would say, there are two absolute, I would say, equally valid strategies. I could have copies and independent projects and write more tests. And because the cool story is, if there's nothing shared, it is always compatible for the compiler. But whether it is compatible or not, it really depends at runtime. So you're shifting, the compatibility checks to runtime, and then you could use you can use more testing, system tests, to ensure the compatibility, right? And if you share the classes, you will have to. If you are shared classes, the problem is then you have to deploy everything at at the same time, more or less. Or you have to keep track of the dependencies between the microservices, right? But both are equal. It really depends on the project. I think we are done for May. We covered everything, hopefully, which is amazing. Podcast is also going strong. The last episode was with Francesco, and he is working on complete different levels. So in his project, they are talking about 400 million operations per second. So yeah, this is what in my projects maybe happens, in month or year, and not per second, but it's okay. Okay, so I think we covered everything, and thank you all for great questions. So it was lots of fun. What's also fun that 8 years ago I get exactly the same questions regarding REST, and we covered this again. So thank you. This time we started, the stream even. I will push the episode maybe tomorrow or the day after. And if you can, say hello at JAX. If not, see you in June. Thank you a lot, and bye.